Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Holly Kutil from Innovia Consulting, and Holly's going to be presenting on pivot tables, not as difficult as they seem. Before I pass it over to Holly to cover on this topic, I would like to remind you that we are recording this session, and it will be posted in our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the questions box and we'll get them answered along the session today. We're going to do something a little bit different. Holly's got a different setup on her presentation, so we're going to address any questions as they come up. All right, so now I'm going to pass it on over to Holly to kick off our presentation.
Thank you, Angie. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have you. For those of you who do know me, welcome back, and thank you for joining me again for another webinar. And those who are new to a webinar with me, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Holly Kutil, and I am the manager of customer service and support, or as we like to call it, customer care here at Innovia Consulting. I started with Innovia 2 years ago as their customer service manager, and I came from the user side where I was the CIO for a company for 10 years. I ran their nav integration and quickly in 2008 found that I loved the product. And not only did I love the product, I got involved in the user group and loved the user group. And so between the product and the people, it became my passion. And I just had a love for the community and the people involved, and got involved deeply with customer and partner relationships within the community, and then found my way over to Innovia to handle not just one company, but many companies, and see everyone with successful integrations to Microsoft Nav and Business Central now. And so I am grateful for being here and glad that you came to join us for the webinar. Today we're going to talk about pivot tables, something that I learned many years ago and just became one of my favorite tools. Of course, most accountants do find Excel to be their favorite tool. No matter where you're at, it seems to come back and just be part of your process. But they are one of the most powerful features inside of Excel, is using pivot tables. And what they do is they allow you to get large amounts of data, extract them, and then answer questions about that data with minimal effort, summarize and get you information that is relative and at the tip of your fingers quickly. So what we're going to do today, again, this is a learning how to create a pivot table. So it's a beginner entry-level class, and we're going to insert the pivot table. We're going to drag some fields around. We're going to learn to sort, filter, create some groupings of the information, and change how the summaries get calculated. And then we're going to look at a two-dimensional pivot table and then also some pivot charts along the way. So I hope that's what you guys were looking for today. I did want to make this an interactive class with you. So it's going to be a hands-on learning lab. So the two tables that we are going to export right out of Nav, if you're going to follow along and want to work with me, is going to be exporting customer ledger entries table. And so if you have a large amount of data, if you've been using the product for years and have many years worth of invoices and credit memos and payments in there, you're going to want to break that down to just 1 year. So either use 2018 or this year from January 1st to current. When we pull that out, or you're going to have a whole ton of information, and might take you a little bit longer than you had hoped for. So again, keep that in mind, and I'll point that out again when we export. And then also we're going to export the customer table for just at the end, a little sort of peek at an advanced feature that I like, and a teaser to a second class if you would like to continue on and learn a little bit more on the advanced side in yet another session. With that, I'm going to jump into the system, and as I said, if you do have questions along the way, please do feel free to ask and we can review those as we go. Or if you need me to go backwards and review something. I will be using Business Central SaaS version 16.1, So those of you that are in NAV, you will have very similar structure and you can do the same things, but the one I'm going to work out of is the Business Central SaaS product. So I'm going to type in my search engine, the customer ledger entry. And you can see it comes up here. And it brings me up all of those ledger entries here on the list. And again, as I said, if you have a lot of years of information, you may want to filter that list. So come over and do your posting date filter. If you're new to filtering and not doing this previously, you can do a year. So if you were going to do 01/01/18 ... to 12/31/18, that would give you just that year. And it would take you down to the year. If you wanted to do the current year, you could put in the 01/01/20 ... and leave it open-ended, and it would take you through the current date for this year. If you're in Business Central SaaS and you haven't noticed, in 2016 version now, or not 2016, but version 16, they did add the bookmark, so you can bookmark the page to your role center. So customer ledger entries would be there if it's something you wanted to see on your role center. And you can also save this view. So if I wanted to save 2018 as a view, I can click the little button over there and put in 2018. And now when I come back to my customer ledger entries page, I can view all, or I can view just that 1 year. And again, if you are on the accounting side and using customer ledger entries often, something you might want to do each year is just to go in and create a view for each year so that you can quickly select the year you wanted to look at. Okay, so I'm going to leave mine open because it's Tufts database and doesn't have a whole lot in it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and export it. And I'm opening in Excel. When you're in Business Central SaaS, edit in Excel, I can make changes and bring it back in, and it would keep the changes. And then here you can see it came out into my Excel spreadsheet already set up with my headers and my filters. If you were not, if you just had a spreadsheet and you didn't have your header line, you would use sort filter and create that filter line at the top, because you're going to need this top filter line when you're doing a pivot table. Right? So we're going to go back and we're going to grab our second table. So we're going to go directly to our customer list, and we're going to just pull out the customer list as our second table. So again, I have my table here. I'm going to go to page and open in Excel. It's going to open up a new one for me. And there you can see my customers have been pulled out. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it as a tab on my first one to keep everything together. I just copied that. I'm going to click on the plus and add a tab, and I'm paste them in there. So you can see, and when I pasted them in, you can see it lost that this row is the filter row. And I'm going to add that back in, so they're a filter row again. I'm going to rename the tab so it says customers, just to be safe. And again, we're just going to use this at the end for just a sneak peek at my favorite advanced feature around the pivot table. So we'll use that actual page a little bit later. So we'll go back to the customer ledger entries. And so here are all our entries. We can filter on things in here. We can remove columns that are unnecessary before we start if we'd like. So there's not a need to, but if you want to, you can do that in here and clean things up. You can remove this external documents column because it's empty. But again, your decision. You can leave everything like it is. It's just a spreadsheet. But if you want to clean it up, you can certainly go right ahead and do that. And then when you're ready to create your pivot table, you just want to click anywhere inside of your data. And we're going to go to the Insert tab. And when you get to the Insert tab, you'll see your first button should be your pivot table. And we're going to click on that, and it's going to open up a little box. So the first one that's generally checked as default is select a table range. And so when you clicked inside of your data, it's going to assume you want this whole sheet. And you can see the little green line going all the way around. It's going to go all the way down to the bottom of my page where my data ends. And you can see it going around the edge. You can change this. So you can tell it, I want to select from this square to this square. And now it's only these squares. So you can manipulate that or choose the columns you want it to use into your table. But for our purposes, we're going to use the whole table. We're going to use what it's selected. The next section down is where do I want it to go? So one is to create a new workbook, and two would be to use an existing workbook. And we'll see that as we do the second pivot table, where we'll use an existing workbook. But the first time we're going to go ahead and choose a new workbook and let it create that new workbook. When we click OK, it automatically creates a new sheet, and it puts my square to start my pivot table on right there over on the edge. I always go ahead and rename this to what I want it to be. And so I'm going to just call it dashboard for this instance. It bugs me that they're all the way to the left, so I always add a row, just clicking on the top of the field and insert a row to push it over so it's not right on the edge. And then I click back in, and you can see that when I click outside of my pivot table box, my pivot table menu goes away on the right. And when I click back in it, it's back again. And I can see my pivot table menu. The other thing you'll see is now I have a pivot table tools at the top. And these are these last two tabs belong to the pivot table. So analyze and design. So again, on analyze, you can see over here, it shows the things that you can see. So if for some reason you lose your pivot table fields and information, they are right here on your analyze at the far right under show. So if you make them go away and you can't find them or get them to come back for some reason, just that simple is to click on these and they'll come right back in and you'll see them again. That was one of the things I did early on is lost them and I thought I broke it forever. And lo and behold, there they are under show. So now you've got yourself set up and you're ready to start building your pivot table. So again, like I said, a pivot table is a quick and easy way to summarize information on the fly. So when you have the customer journal entries all pulled out in here, you can slice and dice that information quickly and get answers pretty fast. So the first one we're going to do is sales by our salespeople. And that's just a real simple, straightforward. All of these invoices we see on our customer ledger entry page. So we see all the invoices that have been entered. Whose sales were they? Where did they fall? Who do they belong to? And so the quick and easy is we're going to come and look at our fields. So these fields match the fields that are on our spreadsheet. So we're going to come down and look for our salespeople, and they're going to be our rows. So we want to put our salespeople here as our rows. And then we want to know what was the amount over here of our sales. And then the amount of our sales, if you remember, our customer ledger entries has payments and credit memos also, and we don't care about those. So how are we going to get rid of those? The simplest way to do that is by document type, and we're going to filter that. So we're going to put that up top. Now you can see up top, it says document types all, and we're going to change it in that. We're going to say just invoices. And now it's brought in just the invoices. And you can see currently, PS is the only salesperson that I have. So all of the sales with the exception of a few that are blank, belong to PS. So we're going to go change that because it's demo data and I can adjust it. But just the same, if you're working on a spreadsheet and you need to make changes or adjustments, or you pulled in some new information, you could do the same with those as well. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to make some changes here. And I'm going to make a group of them be HTK. Then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make a group of them Queen. Come a little bit further. Make some other group. So all I'm really doing here is just changing some of the entries, salesperson code, so that I have some different salespeople, so that our screen looks a little bit more fun. Now when I come back to my front page, you can see I still have PS. All I have to do here is refresh. And by right-clicking and hitting refresh, you're going to see it change. And now it's added all those different ones and it split out that total to the different groups that I've selected along the way. So now I have a spreadsheet that tells me how much sales during this time period for each of my salespeople. Again, something if the sales manager or vice president of sales says to you, hey, can you tell me how much in 2018 Tom sold? I could, again, quickly, just that easily jump in and say, oh yeah, he sold 29,000 in sales. So real simple and easy way to take that information from this giant spreadsheet down to something that simple. And that is really basically what a pivot table is about, just the ability to slice and dice that information. So again, here you can see I can take and drag and drop these fields where I'd like them. So, maybe I'm thinking maybe I want to do salesperson as in columns instead of rows and see them this way. And you can see it quickly shifts that and turns them into columns. And maybe under columns, I want to add dates. So I could drop it down and you can see as I add the dates, it automatically decides it wants to group them by year. And it creates them by year in the groups. Maybe I decide, I don't want to see them in separate lines. I just want to see them all in the same in rows, like I had it before, but I do want it to separate out by those years underneath. So now you can see I can see PSs by year, HTK by year, and so on down. So again, really easy to just shift things around and move them around. If I decide I don't want them, I could drag them right off. So there I chose to take off the year, and now it moved them to quarter. Now I can see sales by quarter. Same thing, I could take quarter off. Now I'm going to see them by month. It's going to take them down to each month. And then I don't want to see them at all. So now I'm back to where I was and I don't see them at all. I just see my sales as a total. Now once I do that, some of the nice things about these pivot tables is other features are slicers. So here I can insert a slicer. And what might a slicer do for me? So on my sheet, I'm seeing my sales by salesperson. But maybe I want to be able to know how much total by customer for each salesperson. So maybe I set a slicer by customer number. And so I add a slicer for the customer number right next to it. I want it to be the same size. I kind of shrunk it so you can see when I'm here on the slicer, tools now show up because I have a slicer. I can change it to 2 columns because they fit so much nicer. Fit them in there. I could change color. So maybe I want my slicers to be a different color. I can get them brighter. I can make the size there. I can stretch and shrink here. I can move it around on the screen. Whatever I like. And now I have a slicer. So what does the slicer do? So now I could say, well, what are the sales for each of these people for customer number 10,000? And now you see the numbers switch, and you can see this is the sales total for customer number 10,000 is 24,000 or 248,000. And you could see it broken down by each salesperson if they had different salespeople on their account. Maybe I want to see just customer 40,000. And again, you can see it switches to customer 40,000 and gives me the totals for them. And again, this is a very simple way, and for demonstration and for teaching, I used something relatively easy. You can use this anywhere for any columns and fields that you want to, and that makes sense for you along the way. 50,000, if I hold down Control, I can select two. Now it's showing me those two. I can clear the filters completely. And so that is how a slicer works. That's your general, straightforward pivot table. Just a simple, create the pivot table, select what your rows are going to be, or if you would want them to be columns, you could put them either place, and then what's going to be your value. So we talked about the sum of things. So over here, you can see what we're doing is totaling up the dollar value of the invoices. When I come down to this value, I can select here, and I could choose value field settings. And this is where I can decide what I want this to be. What sum am I looking for? Do I want a sum, which is just going to total up invoices by salesperson? Maybe I want to count. If I select count, it's going to count how many invoices. So for PS, it's 167 invoices. For HTK, there were 6 invoices that totaled up the amount that we saw prior, and so on down the road. So 219 invoices total on there. And again, if I like this view, if I like this pivot table, I can copy this over here and keep it, and then come back to my original and change that back to my sum. And so now I have two. Now I'm seeing them by my sum that I selected first, and now my second one is by a count of how many invoices. And same thing, maybe I want to know what is the average of their sales. And so now it's going to total up the invoices and divide it by the number and give me an average. And you can see it goes out a lot of decimal points. I can use the same Excel functionality in the system and come down and go to my formatting and go to numbers and say I only want it to be 2 decimal places, and it'll drop it down to the 2. Again, you can use your same Excel table formatting that you did anywhere else right within your pivot table, but now I'm getting an average. The other thing that I can add is a chart. So I can come over to Analyze and Design on the pivot table, and I can choose a pivot chart down here at the end to create a chart. And I can say I want to do columns. Shows me up here which choices I have and what they might look like. I'll pick that one. Now I have a chart that's showing me everybody's. That doesn't look right. Yes. And then again, I can adjust this. I can make changes to the chart. You saw I added the amounts for each person down below. The other place I can create a chart would be just from Insert and choosing a chart from here. I know I want to use a pie chart. I can add a pie chart to it. And so here you can see it's breaking them down by each person. I can add labels. So by right clicking, you can add data labels. And there it's adding those amounts. I can add more than just that to it. So by highlighting the totals, those labels, and right-clicking, I could go to Format the Data Labels. It's going to bring up another menu. And here I can select that I want to add in the percentage. So it's going to tell me what percentage of my total does this in particular area encompass. And then I can add what's the category name, which would be these over here. So now I could see who it is, each salesperson, what their totals were, and what the percentage was of that total. Same way, when you create the chart from your pivot table, it also works with your slicer. So if I click on customer 1000, it's going to reduce to match. There you can see customer 4000. You can see it changing as I change my totals here of what I want to see on my chart. There I took them all off and now I only have one. So they're all interactive as well as I go through. And you can see because I copied this and created a second chart, it also is changing along with it. So whatever is connected to this original one is going to use the same slicer set. And you're going to see it follow all the way across to each one. This is another nice feature. And then, once you have everything created, you dress it up, you move them around, you can type in some headers. You can merge them together. Oh, I didn't put it in the right spot. And add pictures, you can put borders around it. And then you could go to over to view and get rid of all of your grid bars and lines. And that's how you get the clean screen that looks like a dashboard to hand off to somebody. Down so it all matches up nice and neat. As I put all of those fields on there, I don't need that, and that gives me more real estate for my chart. And you just, again, you can play with it till you get it to look how you'd like it to look, and hand off a really nice dashboard to somebody that's interactive, something they can use and look at all the different areas and fields as well. Any questions so far?
Not yet, Holly.
All right. All right, so now we're going to go to a two-dimensional. So we created one that just has by salesperson. So next we're going to break it down and we're going to go back and we're going to use some of those dates and recreate it and bring in some dates as well to that section. So to do that, we're going to come back to our ledger entries to create another pivot table. Again, we're going to click in the field, go to insert, and we're going to add a pivot table. We're going to use all of the data again. This time, though, we're not going to create a new workbook because we just want to add this one to our existing workbook. So again, if you had several spreadsheets, you can use a different spreadsheet and go back and add it to that dashboard as well and using a different data set. So here we're going to say use an existing worksheet, and I don't even have to search for it. I could just click on the dashboard table. It's going to take me over there. And I can select where I want it to go on this sheet. And I know I'm going to want to put it down here on my sheet and say, okay. And now you're going to see it's created a new pivot table number 3 on my sheet. One of the things I'll tell you on this one, because it's it's static and it's not going to grow or expand. It's all right to put your pivot table above your charts and things, but generally, as a rule of thumb, I put my charts above my pivot tables because if they want to expand and grow, it's going to create a mess for you, and sometimes it won't even let you expand them because there's something beneath it. So we'll see that when we look at the one we're going to create now. That's why I left space so I could put a chart here and instead of below it. So again, we're on pivot table 3. We're going to start a new one. And so on this one, we're going to, again, utilize our sales, and we're going to do it by date as our rows. And then we're going to do the columns as our salesperson. So we're going to start this time with our posting dates. So our posting dates we're going to see coming down, and I can expand those. And all I want to expand them to is quarter, but again, I can expand them further out by months. And then we're going to grab our salesperson codes, and they're going to be our columns. So that's what's going to be going across. So we're going to total up our sales by quarters. And then across the top, we're going to split them out by each salesperson and ending with a grand total. And what number we want to use is our amount, because we're using our total amount of the invoices. And bring it over there as a sum. I should have something up here in 2017. Maybe I cut them off. And then, oh, I know probably why, because they were all paid from 2017. So when we come up here again, it's showing both payments and invoices, and we don't want to show payments. We just want to see our invoices. So we're going to add a filter. And when we add the filter, we're going to select invoices only. If you had a bunch of different types for what your filter is, you can choose multiple and select more than one. You're not beholden to one or all. And so there, it added in my invoices from 2017 once I got rid of payments. And so now I have a two-dimensional chart. So you see my first one, again, simple. One set of data, divided it by just our customers or our salespeople. Now I have it divided it by dates and also by salespeople. So two different directions, all broken down. And again, if I want to, I could go even further and I can show it January, February, March, and on and on and on. And this is what I was talking about. As you see, it's growing further and further down the page as these expand. So if you create a pivot table and you have them all collapsed and you add a chart or another table down here below it and you go to open this, it's going to tell you that you can't. And that would be why. You can't have something under it because it doesn't have room to expand then. So I'm going to create something where I want to be able to expand and collapse as I'm working with it, then I leave room for my charts and my slicers up above or to the side of it so that that doesn't happen to me. So now I've got my multi-dimensional pivot table, and I'm ready to start slicing and dicing on this one. So on this one, I want to have a chart up above it. So I'm going to go here and look at my charts. You can look at recommended charts. It's going to tell you which ones it thinks would be the best for you to use. And you can look at how those look. And see, this is how that one's going to look. It's going to break it down to who has sales in each area. And everyone's going to get a different color. And I kind of like that one, so I'm going to go with that one. Add it up above. And space it out again. You know, some of it's just cosmetic, playing with it, getting it to look how you want it to look. I can choose to leave it so that it keeps the key there, that you can click on the different things and add and subtract people from what you're seeing. Up here, I can use the little buttons to look at my chart elements. I can add things. I can change the look and feel of what my chart looks like. So a lot of it, once you've got the basics down, is just playing with the basic Excel options and what you can utilize and do. That one looks kind of cool. Let's play with that. We're going to say okay to that one and leave that. And I may look at it and decide that, that's cool, but I want to add a border around it. Go over here and see if it'll give it a border. Nope. There we go. There, I wanted to put a border around it to sort of block it off. And now I've got a fancy chart to go alongside it. Again, now we want to do our slicers. And so here we're going to do posting dates. So that's going to bring us up by month if we add a slicer for posting dates. And then we'll do customer number again. So two different slicers for this pivot table. And again, because the chart is connected to the pivot table, it'll work for both. Back to analyze. Slicers will also show up here. A little harder to find. You got to dig in and look for them, but you can also see your slicers on insert. I got in the habit of going to my pivot table tools. So here, and then I can select again any field. Even if you didn't use the field in your pivot table, you can slice and dice by it. So, maybe I want to look at users ID. Maybe I want to look at what invoices are still open or closed. And I can select from that. Salesperson, the different things. So again, we're going to use our customer number and our posting date. And because we created the rows by posting date and it automatically grouped them for us as it did, I can also choose quarters and years down here where it grouped by those as well. And then I say okay, and you can see it quickly created me 2 slicers. So I can put them again where I like them. Design choice. And again, you can see here, this one is long, so it scrolls down. If you like it to scroll, that's fine. If you don't, you can start adding columns. Make them fit how you'd like to see them. Maybe I want to make it 3. Stretch it out a little bit. Fit them in. Again, you could change colors and looks and feels of it however you like to. And now again, here I can make the same selection. So maybe I just want to see what's in March. And now it's going to break it down and show me what I had in March and everything in March of 17 and March of 18. Those sales. And again, my pivot table shows me what those totals look like. If I want to add a label, I right click and I can add that data label. And it's going to add those totals in, and I can make them bigger. I can make them bolder. I could give them a different color. If I want to make them match, I can right click and pick one that kind of matches. The sky is the limit to what you can do. And so there, now I'm seeing only March invoices for this customer 10,000. You can see my pivot table also reflects that. My chart reflects those totals, and my slicers match them up as well. So again, same thing as our top section, just now we're using 2-dimensional and gaining more information and able to slice and dice a little bit deeper and with a little bit more granularity in the second group. All right. Any questions? Everybody's good. I hope learning something.
No questions have come through. If anybody does
Okay.
have any, please feel free to type those in so Holly can address those for you.
Awesome. All right, so what we see on my customer ledger entries does not have my customer names or my contact person. And maybe I want to be able to look by our contact person or maybe by the customer name, things like that. So how can I make that happen? This is my favorite little advanced tool that my buddy Kevin taught me. So I didn't have to keep adding that field in and filling in the blanks for everybody on a spreadsheet. So again, we only have customer number. So how can I get the customer name here? And so what we use here is called a lookup. And so for me, I have customers as a secondary sheet. You can also make them columns at the end on this sheet as well, but mine are a second sheet. So on my customer ledger entries sheet, I want to add my customer into this. Down at the end. Actually, I want to add it up here where I can see it. So I'm going to put it here, insert. So I'm going to insert a column here. I might have to do a data refresh when I'm done for it because I added it in the middle, but we're going to put customer name here. All right, so what I want to do here, where is my screen? It's going to be a lookup. Yep. So when you start typing lookup, it's going to pop up with 3 choices. I'm using just the basic lookup feature. Double click and it's going to pop it in there. And it's going to tell you what you need. So you need your lookup value. What am I going to look up? I'm going to look up the customer number. And then where's it going to find it? So that's my second number. So I'm going to put that in a comma, and then I'm going to go find where I'm going to look for it. And it's going to be, in this case, an array of numbers or a section of a column, and then a comma, and then what's my result? So I find my result in this group of fields, and then I'm going to pop it into here. So that's where I'm at on this. And this gives you your 3 things that you need to bring in. Okay, so we have equals lookup, start your parentheses, and what am I going to look up? I'm going to look up this. And then I put a comma. And then I go to the second table, and it's going to follow me. And I want to look it up in this column. I'm going to find it over here. And then I'm going to add a comma. Maybe. Where did it go? Make sure where I'm at. Oh, yep, it did it. All right, so coming back to my screen, you can see I have my customer number, comma, and then it's going to go to customer tab, which is what the exclamation point is, and it's going to look up column A. And now I'm over to what's it going to give me back? And what I want it to give me back is column B. This is my result, it's column B. I want it to be B, just B. So B colon B. When you use A colon A, that means look in this column, the whole column. You could do, if you know it's only going to be within 4 or 5 fields, you could do A2 to A6, B2 to B6, that type of a thing. But in this case, I just put, look in this column and find this number. And then we end our parentheses and say, okay, and I should get an answer. And I'm not. Why? I knew it was going to do that to me. Look up. Look up. Did I not click something? Yeah, let's try it one more time. Okay. Oh, let me check. Uh-huh. Oh, what's wrong with this table? Not letting me sort it. I think I brought it in bad. Go steal it from my other screen. Uh-oh. It froze on me. I think I have to take it away from here first. Not letting me. It's like there, but it's stuck. I can see it in the corner, but I apologize for some reason. Doesn't want to let me release it. Okay, nope. There we go. Now it's gone. We're gonna go out of there. We're gonna go back to the end. I'm gonna add it down here. Try it one more time. Key closed. Look up. I want to look up this number. And I'm gonna look it up here. And I'm gonna find it there. And there we go. Now, why I didn't like it the first time? So you can see just by simply doing it in that first column and doing it as the array of that whole column on my lookups, it went back and it found my different companies and it filled them in on the entire sheet. So now I have all my customer names. So over here, same thing. I could come back to here. And now I can go to my analysis and I can change my data source because it's going to be missing from there. Remember, I added it out a field from what we said our data source was. So if I click on this change data source, I'm going to come here and look at the table. I can come down because it's already started at the top corner because it's doing what it thought was the whole table. I think it may have pushed it out for me because I added it on the inside. So it did, it grabbed the whole thing again. So it refreshed to add in this column. Say okay. And now I can add my customer name to the list as well. Now I could come back and refresh. Now if I want, I can come over here and be really crazy and sort this out by my customers also and see what customers have amounts in them. There it is. I see how quick and easy that was to add that in, and now I can sort by each customer as well. And if I want, I can add a slicer and dicer for the customer name. or to trade it out for the customer number if I wanted to. So that is my favorite advanced feature for pivot tables. There are so many more out there. Again, I hope that this was helpful to you. If you have questions or like to talk more about it, please feel free to jump in and let me know. I am glad to help out and work further with you guys on these. I do say that if you would like to learn more about pivot tables and to have a more advanced class, please type that into the questions or send Angie an email and let her know, hey, we'd like to continue this on to the next level. And we would gladly set up a second call to go further with pivot tables and take it to the next level. Thank you so much for attending. Angie, back to you.
All right, thank you, Holly. So no questions have come through, but like Holly said, if you do have any, feel free to send them over, or if you want to contact your account manager, we can do that as well. I just want to let you know that we do have a few more webinars coming soon. On Thursday this week, we have Mark Hamblin from Insight Works presenting on manufacturing and distribution add-ons for Business Central. And next Wednesday, we have John Grant and Jenny Hollingsworth from Inovia Consulting, and they're going to be continuing their Business Central for Manufacturing 101 series. And this topic is going to be on planning worksheet tips and tricks best practices. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's inovia.com/events. And Inovia has a podcast going on. If you've not heard of it already, it's called the Inovia Conversation. And we just want to encourage you to listen to our selection that Steve Waltz and Jeff Pergolski have provided to us over the past year and a half. They do about 2 episodes a month. And you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's inovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on another Inovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.